Welcome to the Explainer. There's this term we hear all the time. It powers pretty much our entire digital world. But if you ask most people to define it, it's a bit of a mystery. We're talking, of course, about cloud computing.
So what is the cloud exactly? It's a great question, right? Because you can't really point to it. It's not some physical thing in the sky. It's an idea, a concept that's totally flipped how we build and use software on its head.
And here's the thing. You are using the cloud. Constantly. Every single day. Think about it. Checking Gmail, streaming a movie, using pretty much anything from Amazon or Microsoft, you're deep in the cloud. But the magic trick, the real genius of it, is that all the complicated stuff, the servers, the storage, it's completely invisible. And that's not an accident. That is 100% by design.
All right, so to really get why the cloud is such a game changer, we kind of have to go back in time. We need to look at the problems it was designed to fix. It's really a story about moving from owning everything to just accessing anything. Okay, so back in the day, if you were a company and you needed serious computer power, you had one choice: on-premises. And that means exactly what it sounds like. You had to buy everything. The big, powerful servers, the networking equipment, all the software. You built it, you owned it, and guess what? You were responsible for making sure every last bit of it worked. Now get this. This number is just wild. It shows how incredibly inefficient that old way was. Companies would spend a fortune, just a huge chunk of their capital, building out all this infrastructure, only to use it, on average, about 6% of the time. The rest of the time, it was just sitting there, burning electricity, being expensive.
So companies looked at that huge upfront cost and said, there has to be a better way. And that led to the hosted model, basically renting servers instead of buying them. And yeah, it was a step in the right direction. The initial costs were lower, you got a bit more flexibility, but it created a whole new kind of problem, a new kind of waste. This analogy explains it perfectly. Imagine you're a student, right? You've got a 6-month semester, but you only need a super powerful laptop for this 1-month project. Buying one is way too expensive. That's the on-premise model. So you think, I'll rent one. That's the hosted model. But the rental place makes you rent it for the whole 6-month semester. So what happens? For the other 5 months, that laptop is just sitting on your desk collecting dust, but you're still paying the rent on it. See the problem? And that's the exact problem the whole industry started thinking about. The big question became, and this is the quote that really changes everything, when your system is idle, then why are you paying rent? It's such a simple question, but it's revolutionary. It forced everyone to look for a model that was smarter than buying and way more flexible than just renting. A new approach was needed, fast. And that new approach, well, it was a full-blown revolution. It's called the pay-as-you-go model. And this is the core idea that built what we now call the cloud. It just completely changed the game. So here we go. This is it. This is the definition. Cloud computing is all about treating things like server power, storage, and software, not as a product you have to own, but as utility you just consume. Kind of like electricity or water. It's a metered service. You turn on the tap, you use what you need, and you only pay for what you actually used. That's it. And when you look at it like this, the cost difference is just dramatic. The cloud model gets rid of that massive upfront cost of buying everything yourself. It also gets rid of the fixed monthly bill you get with renting. What you're left with is this super flexible, pay-for-what-you-use system that just smashes the financial barrier to entry for everyone.
So how does this all work? Well, it's built on a few really important principles. First, it's a shared, or multi-tenant environment. Think of it like a giant apartment building, instead of a single family home. Lots of users sharing one massive pool of resources. It's dynamic and scalable, so you can crank up the power when you need it and turn it down when you don't. And maybe the most important part, all that complicated infrastructure stuff, it's all managed by the cloud provider. It's completely abstracted away from you, the user.
Okay, so let's peek behind the curtain. How is this even possible? How do these huge companies, your Amazons, your Googles, your Microsofts, create this incredible illusion of just infinite, on-demand computing power?
Well, the secret is kind of old wine in a new bottle. The cloud wasn't some brand new thing invented out of thin air. It's more like a brilliant recipe.
It's a really clever combination of a bunch of powerful technologies that actually already existed. They were just packaged up and delivered in a totally new and revolutionary way. And you can see this path when you look at the history of computing. It's a clear trend. We started with these enormous, centralized mainframe computers in the 60s. Then things got smaller with mini computers and, of course, the PC in the 80s. The 90s brought us the internet, connecting everything. The final, logical step in that evolution was what Amazon did in 2006 with EC2. They took that global network and effectively turned it into one giant, rentable global computer. And that's when the term cloud computing really took off.
So, what are the key ingredients in that recipe? Well, first, you need massive data centers. We're talking about entire buildings, warehouses, just packed with servers. Then you link all those servers together using things like grid computing and parallel processing, which lets you treat them all as one giant supercomputer. And the real magic, the secret sauce, is a technology called virtualization. This lets you take one really powerful physical server and slice it up into lots of smaller, independent virtual servers. That's how you can share all these resources so incredibly efficiently. Let's stick with grid computing for a second, because the analogy is just perfect. Think about the electrical grid. It takes power from lots of different power plants and delivers it right to the outlet in your wall. A computing grid does the exact same thing, but for computer power. It pulls the processing power of thousands, maybe even millions of servers. So when you make a request to the cloud, your task is broken up and processed in parallel across this huge grid, and you get an answer back almost instantly.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. Why does this matter so much? What is the actual revolutionary impact of this totally new way of thinking about computers? This might be the single most mind-blowing change: speed. We're talking about startup time. In the old world, the on-premise world, if you wanted to launch a new project, getting the computers for it could take months. You had to order the hardware, wait for it to ship, install it, configure it. It was a whole process. In the cloud, you can spin up unbelievably powerful infrastructure with a few clicks of a mouse. We're talking minutes, not months.
So the benefits here are they're transformational. You get what feels like infinite resources with zero upfront investment. You can scale way up to handle a huge traffic spike, like on Black Friday, and then scale right back down the next day. That's called elasticity. And what that gives businesses is incredible agility. It frees them up from the headache of managing hardware, and it makes all this power available 24/7, exactly when you need it. It's a total game changer.
So in the end, the cloud did more than just change technology. It really changed our entire relationship with technology. It took computing, this thing that used to be a really expensive product you had to buy and own, and turned it into a flexible service you can just access whenever you want. That fundamental shift has reshaped our modern world, and it leaves us with one last big question to think about. If computing could shift from a product to a service, what's next? What other industries, what other parts of our lives will be totally transformed by this powerful move away from ownership and towards access? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.